During a double date, my best friend kissed my boyfriend right in front of me and smirked. Now you know how it feels. They'd been using me as a cover for months, he said. You're good for bills, not thrills. They expected me to cry instead. I smiled, clinked my glass, and hit play on a video called How They Played Themselves. It happened in the middle of what was supposed to be a chill double date. We were at this dimly lit rooftop bar in downtown Nashville, fairy lights, acoustic covers, couples laughing. Everything felt perfect for about 30 seconds. Then my best friend, Brianna, leaned across the table, grabbed my boyfriend's face, and kissed him. Right there. Full on, deep, and deliberate. Everyone around us went silent. My drink froze halfway to my lips. The sound of the singer's guitar seemed to disappear. When she finally pulled back, she looked at me, smirked, and said, Now you know how it feels. My boyfriend, Dylan, didn't even look sorry. He just wiped his mouth with a napkin, like he'd spilled something inconvenient. Guess it's out, he said, shrugging. We were gonna tell you tonight anyway. I remember just staring at them. Brianna, my best friend since freshman year of college, the person who once cried in my dorm when her ex cheated on her, sitting there with this smug, relieved look. Dylan's the guy I'd been dating for a year and a half, the one who moved into my apartment 2 months ago, looking completely unbothered. I asked, quietly, How long? She smiled like she'd been waiting for that question. A few months, she said. You were kinda just there, you know, always paying for stuff, always playing house. Dylan needed something real. Something inside me clicked off right then. Not broke, just switched. Dylan leaned forward, voice calm like we were having some adult conversation. Look, you're good for bills, not thrills. You wanted stability, I wanted someone exciting. Bri was someone exciting, I finished for him. He nodded. Exactly. Brianna's hand slipped into his under the table. We didn't mean to hurt you, she said, even though the little smirk never left her face. We just couldn't hide it anymore. Everyone at the table was watching. The couple next to us had gone totally still. The waiter standing near the bar froze mid-step. It was like the air itself was waiting to see what I'd do. They thought I'd cry, or throw my drink, or make a scene. But instead, I smiled. Just a small, calm smile. I raised my glass. Well, I said, here's to the truth finally coming out. Then I clinked my glass gently against theirs. They both looked confused for half a second until I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, and tapped play on a video titled How They Played Themselves. I set it on the table, face up. The screen lit up. Brianna's face, her own, appeared first, wearing the same dress she was wearing that night. And Dylan's voice followed. Her smirk vanished instantly. Wanna tell them what this is? I asked softly, tilting my head. Because I'd been recording everything. Every lie, every sneaky little thing they thought they got away with. And this wasn't even the start of it. It was just the first shot. Brianna and I had been best friends for almost 8 years. We met in college, two broke girls sharing a dorm room and surviving on instant noodles and late-night rants about guys who didn't deserve us. She was the bold one, the kind of girl who could walk into any room and get attention. I was quieter, the responsible one who always made sure we got home safe. We balanced each other out, or at least, that's what I thought. After graduation, we stayed close even when life got busy. I got a decent office job at an insurance company. Brianna bounced between jobs, usually quitting after a few months because she was meant for bigger things. I helped her out more times than I could count: rent, groceries, rides, even letting her crash at my place after bad breakups. When I met Dylan at a friend's birthday party, Brianna was the first person I introduced him to. He was charming in that practiced way, funny, smooth, always ready with a compliment. He worked in sales, said he was trying to build a future. He had the kind of confidence that made you overlook the small red flags, the slightly condescending jokes, the way he never seemed to pick up a check, the subtle digs when I achieved something. I didn't realize it back then, but Brianna and Dylan hit it off too fast. They'd joke a lot, share memes, send each other videos. She said it was just friendship, that she was keeping him in check for me. I believed her because, well, I always believed her. When Dylan moved in, things started to shift. He'd complain about me to her, how I worked too much, how I didn't make time for fun. She'd tease me about being too serious and say Dylan needed more excitement. Looking back, it's obvious they were testing how much they could get away with. One night, I came home from work early and found Brianna sitting on our couch. Dylan wasn't supposed to be home yet. They both looked startled, said she'd just stopped by to drop off something. I didn't think much of it. Then little things piled up. The perfume that wasn't mine on Dylan's hoodie. The weird hesitation when I asked Brianna to hang out and she claimed she was busy, only for Dylan to suddenly have plans with friends the same nights. Still, I pushed it down. You don't want to believe the two people you trust most are capable of that kind of betrayal. But the turning point came one weekend when I went to visit my parents. My neighbor texted me, saying she thought she saw Brianna's car parked outside my apartment again. That word, again, got stuck in my head, so I did something I'd never done before. I got suspicious. And once I let myself look closer, I saw everything. Every lie, every message, every excuse. They'd been using me, my apartment, my paycheck, my trust, as cover for their little secret. But what they didn't realize was that once I knew, I didn't confront them. I just started recording. Every conversation, every lie, every time they slipped up. And by the time that double date came around, I was ready. I wasn't the fool anymore. I was the one setting the stage after that first moment of disbelief on the rooftop. Everything became a performance. I stayed calm, smiling, letting them think I was shocked and broken. But behind that smile, I was collecting evidence like a hawk. I started small. I recorded phone calls where Dylan complained about me to Brianna. I screenshot messages where they planned secret dates, small lies about work and errands, little slips that revealed their real priorities. They thought I was oblivious, thought I was still the same naive girl they'd been manipulating for months. Meanwhile, they got bolder. Dylan started mocking me casually in front of her, little jokes about how predictable I was, how practical, not thrilling. Brianna would laugh, not even trying to hide her amusement. I felt that stab in my chest every time, but I never reacted. Not once. I set boundaries, but in a way that made it look like I was still oblivious. I paid for the drinks, the dinners, the little weekend getaways, all the while gathering material for the ultimate reveal. Then came the escalation that really made my stomach turn. One Friday night, I caught them mid-conversation at my apartment, whispered voices, giggles, and Dylan saying, "We can't get caught again. She's too smart, but we'll manage." Brianna said something about playing the long game, like it was a game. I recorded every word, every laugh, every smirk. I realized then that they didn't just want to be together, they wanted me to feel completely worthless. They wanted the thrill of betrayal, the power of using me as a pawn. And they were so confident I'd never see it coming. But I didn't react. I started dropping little breadcrumbs. "Oh, you two must be really close," I'd say with a shrug, showing nothing. I even started inviting them to double dates with other friends, letting them feel the thrill of secrecy while I quietly documented it. Every slip they made, every oops, she won't notice. I caught it all. And I didn't just gather evidence for myself. I started creating a plan, not just to humiliate them, but to make sure everyone around them saw their true colors. I wanted them to feel the same betrayal they'd inflicted on me, but in a way that would leave no room for excuses. By the time the rooftop bar double date came, I had everything. I knew every lie, every secret rendezvous, every moment they thought I was clueless. I even had video of Brianna whispering about how much fun it was to watch me pay for everything while they got the thrill. When they kissed in front of me that night, they weren't shocking me. They were confirming their arrogance, showing me just how smug and untouchable they thought they were. I clinked my glass. I hit play on the video, and their world started to unravel. The video started with clips of them texting, laughing, whispering, and planning, the obvious stuff. But then it got darker, way darker. There was one segment Dylan had no idea I recorded. Him bragging to Brianna about how easy it was to manipulate me. "She's so predictable," he said. "She thinks she's in control, but I can make her do whatever I want. Bills, errands, favors, she's perfect for it." His tone was casual, like he was describing a video game he'd mastered. Then came the clip of Brianna, laughing while reading my bank account notifications on her phone. "Look at her," she said, smirking. "She actually thinks she's winning. Meanwhile, I'm laughing all the way to the mall with her money." I could see their faces at the bar go pale. They had expected embarrassment, maybe tears, maybe a dramatic yelling fit. But what I did next wasn't any of that. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't plead or beg. I just leaned back, took a slow sip of my drink, and let the video play. Then came the kicker. The last clip wasn't from my apartment. It was from Dylan's work office. I had set up a routine lunch meeting and managed to leave my phone recording in a subtle spot. In it, Dylan and Brianna weren't just talking about me, they were talking about the next steps of their plan. They were plotting to get me fired, to ruin my reputation at work. Dylan had even drafted fake emails and excuses to make me look incompetent. Brianna looked directly into the camera at one point, as if she knew I'd see it eventually. "She won't see it coming," she said with a grin. "By the time she finds out, it'll be too late." I froze for a second, not in fear, but in complete clarity. They weren't just cheating and using me. They were trying to destroy my life. Every smile they'd given me, every fun night we'd shared, had been a setup. A calculated manipulation to control me, humiliate me, and profit from me. And right there, in front of the other couple at the bar, I realized how deep it went. I didn't flinch. I didn't shout. I just turned my phone so the screen faced them and said softly, "You thought you had the perfect cover. But the perfect cover always leaves a trace." Brianna's smirk wavered. Dylan's jaw went slack. The other couple was staring like they were watching a live crime documentary. I hit pause on the video and slid it across the table toward them. "Take a good look," I said, "because everything you thought you could hide is out now." And that's when Brianna whispered, almost too softly for me to hear, You recorded everything." I nodded. And for the first time, I saw real fear in both their eyes. After that night on the rooftop, I didn't just walk away. I could have, but I realized that letting them off easy would be letting them win. They didn't just betray me, they tried to ruin me. And anyone who thinks they can mess with me and get away with it has another thing coming. I spent the next week planning. I sat in my apartment, surrounded by my recordings, screenshots, and transcripts. I listed every lie, every manipulation, every time they tried to use me as their personal ATM or pawn. I labeled the clips, categorized them by severity, and thought about the people who needed to see them. First, their social circle. Both Dylan and Brianna had friends who thought they were these golden, untouchable people. I knew what would happen once they saw the truth. Reputation mattered to them more than anything. I drafted an anonymous package, a USB carefully labeled with proof of lies and manipulation, and sent it to key mutual friends. No names, just the evidence. Next, work. Dylan's company had strict policies about honesty and harassment. I compiled the clips showing him plotting to sabotage me at work. I didn't just want him exposed, I wanted him accountable. I emailed the HR department with a detailed report, attaching only the parts that showed him actively planning to get me fired, along with timestamps and screenshots. Then came the psychological piece. I knew they thrived on control, so I had to hit them where it hurt. I created a little highlight reel video, the most incriminating moments, set to captions that called out their manipulation clearly. I saved it to my phone, ready to play it in public if needed. I didn't want to yell, I didn't want to beg. I wanted their world to crumble quietly but completely. Finally, I gave myself a code. No revenge would be impulsive. Every move had to be precise. I thought about timing, who would see what first, and how they'd react. I wanted humiliation, accountability, and justice, but not chaos that could backfire. Meanwhile, I kept my calm in front of them. Dylan and Brianna continued to think I was hurt, crying quietly in the corner or plotting some lame countermove. I let them slip, overconfident. Every text, every voicemail, every attempt to manipulate me again was recorded. Every "you're overreacting" became proof of their arrogance. By the end of the week, I had a plan that would hit all angles: social, professional, and personal. It wasn't about revenge for the thrill of it. It was about making sure they couldn't touch me again, and making sure everyone they'd lied to knew the truth. And the best part? I still had a secret up my sleeve. Something neither of them suspected, something that would twist the knife in a way that even they wouldn't see coming. All I had to do was wait for the right moment. I thought I'd seen the worst of them. I thought I'd uncovered the depth of their cruelty, the cheating, the plotting, the plan to orchestrate my downfall at work. I was wrong. A week into my quiet campaign, I broke into a folder on Brianna's laptop when she left it unlocked at my apartment after dropping off some clothes. It was supposed to be a quick look, just to see if there was anything else I could use, and what I found didn't just add to the list. It blew the list up. There was a spreadsheet buried under a folder called Projects, labeled in her tidy handwriting. Maintenance, At first I thought it was some passive-aggressive joke, then I opened it. Names, dates, amounts, notes, paid gift card, loan promised to pay back, rental covered for month 1. There were rows and rows, not just Dylan and me, not even just our little circle. Friends from college, an ex-boyfriend, a coworker from her last job, even a woman from our neighborhood watch who'd always given Brianna rides. Each name had a tally next to it. Some were thousands. Some were small favors. A few hundred here, a free weekend there. The column labeled status had neat little checkboxes, closed, pending, collect. My stomach dropped so hard I felt like I might throw up right there on her rug. And then I found a second file, voice memos, short clips labeled with modes of manipulation, sympathy, guilt, crisis. Brianna had recorded herself practicing lines. "I'm struggling with rent, can you help me little? I'll pay you back next payday, promise. My car broke down, I know it's sudden but can you front me?" It was humiliating and clinical at once. She'd rehearsed these manipulations like a salesperson rehearses a pitch. But the thing that shredded me the most was the folder titled Profiles. Inside were screenshots of social media accounts, notes about people's jobs, what they owned, who they dated, how much they made. She'd kept a dossier on everyone. On me she had a note, "Reliable, gives, doesn't ask questions." Next to Dylan's name, "Ego money, likes praise." It was like reading a monster's shopping list. They weren't just using me for thrills or bills. Brianna had been running a system, a long con that turned empathy and friendship into a cash flow and power trip. She'd targeted the people who'd trust her, people like me, and turned our kindness into an income stream and social currency. Dylan was part of it, sure, but he was, I realized, only ever a foot soldier. He took tasks, made them easier. She was the architect. I closed the laptop and sat on the floor for a long time, heart hammering, mind rushing. All those "oh, you're so generous" texts I'd gotten after helping her out. Not gratitude, a ledger entry, "the late night, can you cover this?" Texts, not desperation, bookkeeping. I felt sick imagining how many times she'd laughed about me on the phone, how many times she'd written a note and checked it off. I felt smaller than I'd ever been. But underneath the nausea, a new layer of clarity formed. This wasn't just personal revenge territory anymore. This was a pattern that affected dozens of people. If I let it stop at them, Brianna would just move on to the next set of victims. So I did something I hadn't planned. I copied the spreadsheet to a secure drive, printed the most incriminating pages, and started drafting messages to everyone on that list. Not accusatory, not dramatic. Just facts, dates, amounts, screenshots. No flair. No venom. The spreadsheet was the venom. That night, I sat back and watched the first replies come in: confusion, then anger, then betrayal, then a shaking. I thought she was my friend. Friend group chats erupted. People who had once laughed with Brianna were suddenly reading what her business was, all at once. Brianna texted me. "What the hell did you do?" Dylan called. Brianna showed up at my door, voice high and panicked. But the ledger circulated faster than they could move. Her safety net, the people who'd turned a blind eye, the quiet favors she'd collected like IOUs, began to pull away. They thought breaking me would be the end. Instead, it was the start of dismantling her entire empire. By the time Brianna finally cornered me in my apartment, I already knew the full scope of why they'd done this. Not for love, not for excitement, not even for the thrill of sneaking around in secret. It was greed. Pure, calculating greed. She leaned against my kitchen counter, arms crossed, eyes darting around like she was trying to find an escape route. "You have no idea what you're messing with," she hissed. Dylan and I, we didn't do this because we wanted to hurt you. We did it because people like you are predictable, easy, useful, and I don't mean emotionally. I mean financially, socially. You and everyone else were my tools, my resources. You paid for dinners, rent, trips. You cleaned up after me. You trusted me. And Dylan, he was the perfect accomplice. All I had to do was direct him. I let her talk, letting the words sink in. She was admitting it all. This, she gestured to the screen where I'd cued the video evidence, was my system. I track people. I manipulate people. I profit off them. I thrive on their trust and generosity because it's efficient. Less risk, more gain. And the best part, people like you, nice, stable, gullible, never see it coming. You're predictable, you're reliable, you're expendable. I realized something horrifying in that moment. It wasn't about Dylan or the fun of sneaking around. It was about control, control over people she could exploit for years. The lies, the kissing, the betrayal, they were part of the game, not a mistake. She had tested me for months, measured my limits, and once she knew I wouldn't resist immediately, she started running numbers, literally. I had never been her friend, I had been her investment. "And you expected me to cry?" I asked, calm, letting the silence hang between us. "You expected me to collapse because your little scheme finally got revealed," she smirked, almost proud. "Yeah, that's the usual reaction." Her eyes flicked nervously to the laptop, where the spreadsheet of debts, favors, and manipulations sat, printed and laid out in neat stacks. I could see the panic start to bubble behind her confident facade. The fear of exposure, the loss of control, it was real now. She wasn't used to losing, and she wasn't used to being predictable herself. I understood in that moment why they did it. Not for passion, not for thrills, not even for love. They thrived on power, on exploiting people who cared, on the sense that they could bend the world around them without consequence. They expected me to cry, to plead, to beg for mercy. But I didn't. I wasn't a pawn. I was the one who had rewritten the rules, and they were about to learn just how costly it could be to underestimate me. The next week was almost too easy. I didn't have to yell, I didn't have to threaten, and I didn't have to beg for justice. The evidence did all the work. First, Brianna's friends started messaging each other in confusion, then outrage. Did she really? I can't believe this. Within 48 hours, her social circle had crumbled. Friends who once borrowed money or covered favors for her stopped answering texts. College friends who had once trusted her were calling me to confirm what they were seeing. She went from being the fun, carefree friend to the person everyone whispered about in disbelief. Dylan's work got the files I'd compiled. HR didn't just reprimand him, they put him on leave while investigating his plot to sabotage me. He tried calling me, tried begging, but the official documentation made it impossible for him to wiggle out. His golden boy persona evaporated in an instant. And the rooftop bar? I had friends there that night record their reactions during the video playback. Those clips made their way to mutual acquaintances, creating a ripple of humiliation that even their pride couldn't survive. They weren't just exposed privately, they were publicly, irreversibly exposed. Then came the sweetest part. I invited Brianna to lunch under the guise of reconciliation. She came in, smug and arrogant, thinking she could charm her way back. I slid the printed spreadsheet across the table. She froze. Every friend, every financial manipulation, every little exploit laid bare. She realized she'd lost the game entirely. I didn't yell. I didn't make threats. I just said, "Here's your empire, built on lies and now it's crumbling. Enjoy rebuilding it from scratch." She left without a word. Dylan called me a dozen times. I let them go to voicemail. I took a long walk that evening, the Nashville skyline glowing above me. I thought about the months of betrayal, the lies, the humiliation they thought they could inflict on me. And I smiled because I had done more than survive it. I had dismantled it. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was free. I had turned their manipulation, their greed, and their arrogance into a story everyone around them would remember. And for the cherry on top, I changed the video's title before sending it to mutual friends. How they played themselves. Because in the end, that's exactly what they did. Justice wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. It was precise, calculated, and entirely satisfying. And me, I finally got to toast to that alone, smiling, fully aware that I was never going to be anyone's fool again. The last text I received from Brianna, just one word. Unbelievable, exactly.